Well, here we are. After more than 6 years, this is my final episode of Locked on Giants. I've got a few things to say, some thanks to give, and one final take on the team. Let's get into it.
You are Locked on Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for almost 6.5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. And coming up on today's show, we are going to get into the big picture with the Giants, the core of the Giants, and look ahead to free agency as well. We're going to preview the rest of the season, and then we're going to give one final thank you and farewell and reflect back on my time here. So before I get into that, I do just want to mention that if you want to continue to follow me, you can check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick, on Blue Sky at ben-kaspick.bluesky.social, and on YouTube at Ben Kaspick, where I can't get into specifics, but you can continue to follow me there, and I hope that you do. So let's get into the deadline, the core, and the big picture, where things stand with the Giants right now. So obviously, this season has taken a very disappointing turn for the worse in recent days, and it culminated with a trade deadline sale, which for almost the entirety of the season, it seemed like they were going to for sure be buyers. They collapsed at the last minute, and they ended up selling, trading away Tyler Rogers, Camilo Doval, and Mike Yastrzemski, and bringing back, a lot of prospects. But these are prospects, and so you don't quite know how they're going to pan out. And that's one of the big takeaways, is that the Giants have not had a lot of success with their minor league system. Like, who exactly have they produced here? Looking at the active roster, Elliot Ramos, although he continues to make some really bad defensive and base running blunders, and it's cost the Giants lately. I mean, just the other day, an infield fly. Like, this is stuff you learn in Little League. If the ball is, if it's an infield fly and it drops, you do not have to advance. And he thought he did and got caught. So kind of unacceptable. But he's hit well, Elliot Ramos. He's still only 25 years old, which is kind of wild. But he's homegrown. And looking at the rest of the roster, Casey Schmidt is homegrown. Patrick Bailey, Luis Matos, Logan Webb, that's a big success story. We're getting a look at Carson Wisenhunt now, who's probably going to stick in the rotation, given that they didn't make additions in the starting rotation. They didn't make additions at all, although there are some players like Jose. And by the way, the Giants had his name wrong when they said how to pronounce it. I was confused because there's an accent over the O at the end, but they said it's Buto, but it's Buteau. Jose Buteau is going to be on the Giants roster tonight facing his former team. This is a good reliever they picked up, and a lot of years of team control, so I like that move. I also have liked what I've seen from Matt Gage, the left-handed pitcher they picked up after the Tigers had cut him loose. There's some homegrown talent in the bullpen with Randy Rodriguez and Ryan Walker, obviously Camilo Doval and Tyler Rogers, but those players are now gone. And Landon Roop, who's on the IL. So there has been some recent success with the homegrown players, but the big picture is that it's just not enough because the Giants have a low probability now of making the postseason. It wasn't long ago. It was like 70%. They somehow have the worst record in baseball since acquiring Rafael Devers, which is stunning. You would just never have imagined. Want to talk about can't predict baseball? That's the ultimate. I mean, they lost essentially Jordan Hicks out of, and I guess Kyle Harrison, who's just pitching in the minors and struggling in the Red Sox organization. And you added Rafi Devers, and you went on to have the worst record in baseball since then. So nobody could have predicted that. Like, you could predict maybe that he would struggle, and that would just be a guess. But worst record in baseball makes no sense. But it kind of does make me feel like, okay, this has just been a really bad stretch for this team, and they still have the potential to play well down the stretch. So the core of the Giants, and like looking at their payroll and kind of the present, as we'll turn our attention to the future in a few minutes. But you've got Rafi Devers under contract through 2033, and he's learning first base on the fly. He was not a good defensive third baseman, but there's obviously some reason to believe that he could turn into a good defensive first baseman. But so far it's been he's been about league average with the bat, most of it coming from on-base percentage, 219 average, just a 365 slugging, negative .1 wins above replacement, came in just on fire and just has not been the same guy with the Giants. Strikeout rate of over, of course, Fangraphs just crashed on me. That's, of course, very appropriate as I try to do the final episode. 30.9%. Strikeout rate with Boston this year was 22.8%. So that's also reason for me to be optimistic moving forward. But so far, it's looking like, like you've got Devers on this huge contract and he hasn't lived up to it. But I think that he is, at the end of the day, Rafi Devers, and he's just consistently been excellent. And let him adjust and let him settle in, and you've got a potent bat in your lineup for years and years to come. He's still just 28 years old, so there's lots of prime years left. So a piece to build around for sure. Willy Adames has been on fire since he finally took his first game off of the season in early June. And so on the season now, he's been 10% above league average offensively, with expected numbers that are even better, projections that are really good offensively, like ranging from 10 to 20% above average offensively. And to me, defensively, he's looked so much better. So he's only 29 years old, but he will turn 30 in September. And so when you look at the fact that it's a 7-year contract, there will be 6 years remaining going into next year, is through 2031. I feel good about it for the next 2-3 years, but then you start to worry about decline. Matt Chapman under contract through 2030, and he's steady and consistent and good, and got thrown off a little bit by the injury he had to his fingers in that freak kind of incident diving back into the bag at first. But he's 32. He's going to enter next season age 33, and he'll have 5 years remaining on that contract entering next year. And so that, again, I feel okay about it for like 1 or 2 years, but then it has the potential to turn south towards the back end. And Logan Webb is signed through 2028, and there's no concern there. He's very good, and it doesn't take him too deep into his decline years at all. And Jung-Hoo Lee is another player signed long-term. I think as he continues to adjust to the major leagues, we've seen flashes of what he can do. We've also seen him really struggle, but I think that he has the potential to adjust and maybe be better in future seasons. He signed through 2029, but he can opt out after 2027. So at least 2 more years of Jung-Hoo Lee, but maybe 4 more years of Jung-Hoo Lee under contract. So that's kind of the state of the team. We didn't get too much into the young players and how much team control they have, etc. But we'll get to that a little bit and also talk about free agency, next year's free agent class, and what the Giants should do, some players they should target in just a minute and before we get into it. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. That's me, like, literally every day. One of the wildest golf shots I ever made, I had just had some 5-hour energy, and I shot that ball. It was a calculated miracle up the steep green, a little chip shot, and it rolled down right into the cup. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription offers. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-hour energy shots today. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the upcoming free agent class, who I think are some potential targets for the Giants. And also, I do want to mention the core, not just counting players who are signed to long free agent deals, but also some of the young players who are under contract for a significant number of years. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, I'm not actually entirely sure when there will be a new host of Locked On Giants, but there will be a new host of Locked On Giants. And so if you're subscribed, you'll see the show pop back up on your feed when that time comes. But if you want to follow me, and what I'm up to next, at Ben Kaspick on Twitter, at Ben-Kaspick on Blue Sky, and at Ben Kaspick on YouTube. So, getting into the rest of the core, I mean, there's also the minor league system, which doesn't rank favorably by a lot of evaluators. They did add to it with these trades, but there was nothing earth-shattering, but maybe it improves them a couple spots in prospect evaluators' rankings. But the contract statuses of some of the young players who have team control: Patrick Bailey through 2029, Elliot Ramos through 2029, Ryan Walker through 2029, Casey Schmidt through 2029, Jose Butto, who we'll probably see in the next couple days, through 2030, Randy Rodriguez through 2030, and Hayden Birdsong and Landon Roop through 2030. And so there is some hope there with the young players, but I do feel like they'll need to make additions. And I'm going to later on in a couple minutes give like one final big take that is what am I trying to say? I'm going to give a bold, honest thought to leave with Giants fans. That's going to be like my last takeaway there. But the free agency preview is where I want to go next. So what kinds of moves should the Giants make this winter? Who are the names to keep an eye on? So I've gone through it, and obviously first base is kind of a question mark. Like, is it Devers? Is Devers a DH? I think they view him as the everyday first baseman because that's what Bob Melvin said. And I think that's better because you want your stars on the field. If he can handle being a first baseman, he prefers to be engaged and involved. And being a DH is hard. You just sit around and wait to hit. So in an ideal world, that's a rotating spot and not like a set person who DHs. However, just to point out, there are some first basemen who are interesting on the free agent market. Pete Alonso has an opt-out. Josh Naylor is a free agent, and Rhys Hoskins is a free agent as well. Rhys Hoskins did grow up in the Bay Area. And at second base, which is definitely a possible position of need, it depends on how this season finishes out with the likes of Casey Schmidt and Christian Koss and maybe Tyler Fitzgerald again getting some opportunities. If nobody really comes through, you can look at Ha-Sung Kim, who has an opt-out and may trigger it, may not. He's on the injured. He's been hurt most of the year, and he's hurt again. So I'm guessing he won't opt out. But if he does, pairing him with Jung-Hoo Lee, one of his best friends, or if not his actual best friend, I like Ha-Sung Kim quite a bit, although he is primarily a shortstop. But then maybe long term you could move Adames to short or to second if needed, and Ha-Sung Kim could maybe fill in at or be your shortstop down the road if needed. So Gleyber Torres having a big year with the Tigers is another free agent, and Brandon Lau, there's a club option, but the Rays are always a little bit stingy, and he's getting closer to being just a pure free agent. So either they don't pick up the club option or they do, and you trade for a guy like Brandon Lau. That's just someone to keep an eye on. The big prize of this free agent class is Kyle Tucker. Obviously, he would be the most ideal fit. He's a right fielder. The Giants need a right fielder. They just traded Mike Yastrzemski. He's probably gone forever from playing for the Giants, like almost certainly with Yaz. So we talked about all the trades yesterday. If you want to check out that episode, look for yesterday's episode. But Kyle Tucker would be the best player the Giants could go out and get, and I hope they do. I hope they just say, to heck with it. We're going to outbid everybody by a significant amount and bring in one of the best hitters in baseball and pair him with this core that it should be better than they are, like offensively. When you've got Ramos and Devers and Adames and Chapman and Lee, and then imagine if you had Tucker in the middle of all that, it would be kind of monstrous. And so it is a little surprising to me how poorly they've done offensively. And they did notably try to trade for Kyle Tucker in the offseason. That was reported by Andy Baggerly of The Athletic. You've also got Kyle Schwarber. I don't see him ending up here, and I also don't view him as an outfielder. And Cody Bellinger has an opt-out. Luis Robert Jr. has a club option. We don't know if it's going to get picked up. Even if it does, he probably gets traded. And then there's starting pitching, which I think the Giants will be all over this market, given that Robbie Ray will be entering the last year of his deal. One more year left for Robbie Ray. And then it's, Justin Verlander's contract will expire. Wilmer Flores' contract will expire. I guess it's worth mentioning who the free agents for the Giants will be. Justin Verlander, Wilmer Flores. There's a club option for Tom Murphy, which will not be picked up. And that's it for free agents for the Giants. So Flores, he's going to be 34. No, he's already 34. So he'll be 34 again. Probably, maybe, possibly worth bringing him back and just being like a bench piece. Certainly not an everyday type player, but, maybe a reunion in the cards for Flores. I'm not sure. But starting pitching wise, there's some good players, and that bodes well for the Giants, who have a better time attracting pitchers to play for them. So you've got Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, Framber Valdez, who would be an amazing pairing with Logan Webb, both just utter ground ball machines. Chris Sale has a club option. I would imagine that's picked up. Michael King, mutual option. Those are like never picked up. So I bet Michael King reaches free agency. Ranger Suarez of the Phillies. So there's some good pitching, and hot take, I'll say the Giants end up with one of those guys at least, probably just one, but Cease, Gallen, Framber Valdez, King, or Suarez. Hot take. Giants get one of those guys in the offseason. So I'm going to leave you in this segment with one bold, honest thought about the Giants. So what that is that I believe they're going to continue to make moves that appease fans. Like, you're going to be happy under Buster Posey as long as he's doing this with the kinds of moves that he makes. For example, like when they signed Willy Adames and when they traded for Rafael Devers. Those are like big, bold moves with players of significant stature in the game coming into play for the Giants. However, I have concerns about this leading to some of the same problems we saw in the late 2010s. So if you can't win a World Series in the next few years, you do have the potential now with some of these contracts you've signed of having an aging veteran core that is in decline and under contract for big dollars. So there is risk and concern long term, especially because a year like this year was supposed to be these players are in their prime. You went out and you got Devers. Things are going to be good, but they ended up selling. So time goes by and players get older year after year. And so their window of contention when you're relying on players that you sign in free agency, and Devers is kind of essentially like a free agent signing because he's under a huge contract, even though it was a trade. They need young players like Bryce Eldridge and whoever else like to come up and make an impact at the major league level, like a real impact. They need that. And one final thought, this is just a quirky final thought before we say goodbye, is that I really believe the Giants should alter the dimensions at Oracle Park. Don't hate me if you have a different opinion. It's okay to disagree, but I'm just tired. I've been watching Giants baseball my whole life, and I watch a lot of other games too. And I watch the Giants play on the road, and it's just a brutal ballpark to hit in. They're once again tracking to have no 30 home run hitters. Even Devers, who looked like a lock for 30 home runs, probably isn't going to get there given how many he has hit with the Giants, which is not that many. So it's just too difficult of a ballpark to hit in. So don't ruin the aesthetic of the ballpark, but long term, even short term, I would like to see them just kind of get rid of Triples Alley and just cut that off and make it a fence somehow. People have talked about putting a line on the wall, but I still think it's too deep out there, and just cut it away. I also think the bullpens are some of the worst in baseball. Like, they were on the sides. I think they probably were better when they were on the sides. I know it was a risk for players on the field, but I'd like to hear honest takes from Giants relievers about the bullpens they have. They look cramped to me. They look uncomfortable. They look awkward. So if you reconfigured the outfield wall, I think you could also maybe redo the bullpen idea. It just doesn't look good to me. It doesn't look comfortable. You look around the league, there's some really nice bullpens, and the Giants seem to have, to me, one of the worst bullpens in baseball. Not player-wise, but architecturally. Okay, so those are some weird final thoughts about the Giants. Coming up in just a minute, we are going to give some final takes and farewells as I wrap up my time at Locked On Giants. We'll get into it in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Game Day Hue, and so is this hat I'm wearing. For Giants fans like me, this one hits the mark. Game Day Hue makes clean, no-logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, or anywhere in between. This hat pairs perfectly with my usual gear. It doesn't replace my team's logo stuff, it just adds to the lineup. It's the kind of hat that reps your team without screaming it. Subtle, but still says everything. And it's not just hats. Check out this split shade glove. Check out their split shade gloves. This is an amazing golf glove made for the golf course, or just the perfect gift for the fan who has everything. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now is the time to load up. Let your colors talk like I do, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com, code MLB15. All right, as promised, we've reached the end of the line. We are going to get into my final thank you and farewell for this show. So I made a bunch of notes and I'm kind of all over the place, to be honest. I lost track of exactly what I intended to say, but essentially I want to give deep thanks to all of you. And whether you're an everydayer, a casual listener, everyone who's ever sent a kind message or just tuned in even once, if today's your first episode, then I just want to deeply say thank you. And I'm going to reflect on my 6.5 years here and how it went by oh so very fast. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, I am not sure when there will be a new host. There will be, though, a new host of Locked On Giants, just to be clear. So if you're subscribed to this channel or podcast, you'll see the show pop back up in your feed when that time comes. So continue to stay subscribed. And if you want to continue to follow me, I'm at Ben Kaspick on Twitter and on YouTube, and also on Blue Sky at Ben-Kaspick, and then the whole .bluesky.social or whatever thing. So just to give an honest look back and look ahead about this time, I just want to express deep gratitude to every one of you. We've literally had several million downloads over the last 6.5 years. We've had many hundreds of thousands of unique listeners. Possibly at this point, I did lose access. We kind of changed over to a different uploading platform, and so the data got kind of jumbled a little bit. But even years ago, we had close to 500,000 unique listeners. So at this point, it could be close to 1 million individual people who have tuned into this show, and many millions of downloads over these 6.5 years. And many of you follow me on Twitter. Many of you have added me on Blue Sky that I just made. And many of you have just been oh so very kind to me and expressed your appreciation for the work that I've done here. And it truly means everything to me. I started podcasting about the Giants in 2015, as I've mentioned, every day for the last 6.5 years, independently. And I did it because I felt like there was a void in Giants coverage that was kind of more data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. Giants coverage was really different back then when I started in 2015. It was like newspaper type cover. Nobody was talking about weighted runs created plus or FanGraphs WAR or playoff odds, according to FanGraphs and advanced analytics. It was still batting average, home runs, RBI, all that stuff was. And then just some of the takes I just thought were missing something. And that's why I started podcasting independently. And then I was lucky enough that David Locke, the founder and president of this company, he's a Giants fan. And so he heard my independent podcast, which was called Covecast. It no longer exists. But he heard it and reached out to me, and I'm forever grateful to you, David Locke, for the opportunity that you gave me to host this show. And it's just been such a privilege and such an honor. And I thank you. I thank Locked On, and I thank each and every one of the listeners, the everydayers, those of you who tuned in now and then. It doesn't matter. And then all the kind words over the years. Like, I've just been blown away by the support that so many of you have given me, and just some of the things specifically that some of you have said to describe how you feel about the work that I do. So thank you, David. Thank you, Locked On. And thank you most of all to each and every one of you who has tuned in, because without you, what is this, right? It's nothing without the listeners. And so you guys are everything. And guess what? I'm not going anywhere. Again, I'm at Ben Kaspick on social media, on YouTube and on Twitter, and then on Blue Sky at Ben-Kaspick at .bluesky.social. Ugh, I hate saying that. If you want to follow me along for what's next, I'm not stepping away from Giants baseball, just shifting into something different and at a different pace. Just to be clear, Locked On Giants isn't going away. There will be a new host at some point, though I don't know exactly when or who that will be. So if you're subscribed, you'll see the show pop up on your feed when that time comes. Well, it's that time, my friends. That's it from me. One last time as the host of Locked On Giants, I'm deeply grateful for your time, your support, and your passion for this team. Whether you listened every day or just once, thank you. There will be a new host at some point, but in the meantime, if you'd like to stay connected with me and what I'm doing, I'm at Ben Kaspick on social media, especially on Twitter, but also everywhere else I've described multiple times today. And while this is my last episode here, I'm not done covering the Giants, not even close. I'm Ben Kaspick, and this has been Locked On Giants.